lot of people ask me like, why did you go for, not just the first time, but 7 times? And I was like, that's when you know that this is what you're supposed to do, you just
Yeah.
keep going, you just keep knocking. Like, I had a mentor explain it to me, like, if you come home and you know someone's home, you can see them.
Yeah.
How long are you going to knock for? It's your house. He's
I
like, you're
love
gonna
that.
knock, you're gonna call, you're gonna try the window, the back door, you're gonna like. So when I have that picture, when I pick something like this move to Paris, like buying a second house, buying a big ass house, like once I pick something and we decided like, oh yes, this is the next thing to get to the life that I've dreamed of,
Mm-hmm.
it's do or die at that point.
Right. Welcome to episode 4 of Stories with Shomik. In spite of all the obstacles in our way, we've made it this far. And
Yeah.
by obstacles, I just mean my procrastination. Today's guest is someone I really look up to. He's had a very interesting journey. We've got Tobi here. Tobi is the founder of Three Skills, a company on a mission to create the world's most employable candidates. And it does so by teaching people how to communicate their value. Tobi's team has trained over 17,000 people, which is a staggering number. I did not know that till I looked it up on your website, Tobi, and it blew my mind. I first got to know of Tobi thanks to his favorite platform, LinkedIn. Something he'd posted came up on my feed. I saw it and scrolled on as one does. The next day, he was on my feed again, and the next day, and the next day. And I realized soon enough that there's 3 things in life that are certain: death, taxes, and Tobi's LinkedIn post. It's coming every single day. Now, while Tobi does run a business supporting people's career growth, I've honestly been very impressed by the sheer amount of value that he shares online for free. Tobi and I have met before. We met in Ottawa when he was based out of Ottawa, and always been very, he has a very interesting immigrant life story that he doesn't talk about as much online. And I think that the world should know a little bit more of that as well. And by the world, I mean our 4 consistent listeners that we've had from the beginning. So, Tobi, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on the pod.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. So exciting to be here.
Amazing. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you from, and when did you move to Canada?
So I'm originally from Nigeria, moved to Canada in 2010, against my will. My dad just, picked the school. He's like, you're going to Canada. I was like, what the flip, So came to Canada, did a year of high school in Hamilton. And then I just applied to universities as backup because when you cross the stage in high school, they would say, this person got into this university and this university. And I didn't want to embarrass my parents. So I applied to a bunch of universities. But my goal was always to basically, after school, drop out, go play football or soccer in England, which my dad let me.
Nice.
But unfortunately, I didn't get picked by an academy. So I ended up going to Carleton University, studying business, played varsity soccer for a year. And then basically just started doing side hustles right from second year, and never stopped since. So
Amazing.
studied business in university with a concentration in human resources, mostly because that's my dad was a human resource manager, so I was like, that's the path we're going to go. But it turned out to be the right path, and then graduated, got into tech sales, transitioned into customer success in 2020, sales lead in 2022, and then left corporate in 2023 this year to go run my companies.
Amazing. And now you're running all your companies full-time based out of
Paris right now.
There you go. Oh, Mr. Worldwide over here. I love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, look, I actually didn't know about the soccer plan. That is new to me. Well, if you could pick a club in the Premier League you could play for, who would it be?
It was always going to be Arsenal, number 14. Like, I told my
Nice.
mom at 14, when I was the age of 14, I sat her down. I was like, okay, mom, listen, I'm going to go play for Arsenal. I'm going to buy you a Rolls Royce. Don't even worry about it. I got a plan. You know,
Amazing.
it didn't work out with the Arsenal, but now I have a
Yeah.
plan to one day own
Well,
a
the Rolls
soccer
Royce is
team,
coming anyway. I can
and the
say it.
Rolls Royce is coming anyway. So,
Yeah.
we're going to be fine.
I love that. I love that. So, yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that you studied HR management because your dad worked in that space. I am curious. Like, I would love to see a stat on how often people pick their careers based on what their parents did. Because, like, I ended up in sales because my father was always in sales. Um, and like growing up, I just saw that as like, yeah, this is a pretty sweet gig. I saw him grow in his
Mhm.
life and his career, and like as a family, we saw the sort of upside that comes from being consistently good at sales, and it just seemed like the most natural path forward for me. But then when I used to talk to my friends, it was like they wouldn't touch sales with a 10-foot pole. For them, it was like, no, no, sales is, like sales typically tends to bring up that it, the first person, like the stereotype still is that, sales is, that secondhand car dealer who'll show
Yeah,
up
yeah,
just as you're looking at a car, like a snake oil salesman vibe.
yeah.
And, things have changed so much. And like, there's so many opportunities that, yeah, there's definitely a path there that that people are missing out on, and the potential upside. Because I genuinely think that sales is probably the closest you can get to being an entrepreneur if you don't want to take a full-time leap, because you can still capture a lot of the upside that you bring into the company, which
100%.
most other roles don't. But yeah, so tell me about the tech sales role. How did you land your first job out of undergrad?
Yeah, I mean, uh, as I was graduating, I was panicking because um, the only thing I was good at was talking, and I was trying to figure out, who gets paid to talk and like how much can they get paid, So I remember I was just applying to like hundreds of roles. I wasn't getting many callbacks. And then I essentially got two interviews. I got one at Lululemon, and I got one at a tech company called Purple Forge.
Mhm.
Um, and I basically decided not to go for the Lululemon one because it was like a group interview for like a in-person sales role, like a retail sales role. And the Purple Forge one was a tech sales role, whatever that meant. Like I'd never
Right.
really thought about it. But I went for the interview. I did my best. What I had on my resume was that I had sold hoverboards, $10,000 worth of them in a month. And so I go into the interview. The guy loves me. The founder, he's like, I think you can be our top sales rep here. And, he's selling me on all this stuff. And he offers me $40,000 right out of school. And I was like, oh my God,
Uh,
40,000?
and what year
I was
was this?
so very happy. This is 2016.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So 40, I was like, oh my goodness, like $40,000. Like, and so I called one of my friends who had like looked at my resume. I was like, I got an offer. Can you look through it? He's like, yeah, you get 2 weeks vacation and 40K. I was like, 40K, I'm signing. So I ended up signing. And the day after I signed, I went, I, you know, asked the girl I was seeing at the time to be my girlfriend, who is now my wife,
Hmm.
because I was like, I can provide. I have a job. So the next day I went and asked her to be my girlfriend. So
Amazing.
it was such a good. So that's how I got into tech sales, not necessarily on purpose. It was just the first person that gave me an offer.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, good on you that the first thing you thought of when you got a job was, hey, I can provide. Because when I got my first job, my first instinct was, excellent, I can go party every Friday night without having to worry about the ramifications. So good on you
Yeah.
for, thinking further out. That is very, very impressive. And actually, let's talk about the Shopify role, because I know there's a lot of hustle and fight that went into making sure you got that job. So let's start from when you decided, okay, I want to work at Shopify, and from that time to now, to the time you landed the job, what was the process like?
Yeah, I mean, I was selling hoverboards, like I said, in
Yeah.
2015, 2016. I didn't know much, but I knew that if I rode it around, people would stop me. And so I listed it on Kijiji and I created a Shopify store. Actually, I paid a guy $500 to create a Shopify store for me. Um, that's how I kind of came across Shopify. And basically, the marketing plan was simple. Write it around. When people stop me, I'm going to sell it on the spot. I have people buy 1, 5, like, for Christmas, all this stuff. I
It's
found a guy
amazing.
in Montreal that had brought in like 500 of them. So he would just come every weekend. I would call my customers to come pick it up. It was drop shipping before drop shipping was drop shipping. Um,
Amazing.
so that was when I came across Shopify. And, shortly after that, I became obsessed with Shopify. One of my friends was employee number 100 at Shopify. He had so many good stories about how they're so
Mm.
entrepreneurial and people inside the company are entrepreneurial and all the stuff he was learning. So I became obsessed with Shopify. And partially because after I got laid off, the company Purple Forge that I worked for went bankrupt in 2017.
Mhm.
And so I was out of a job. And that was the first time I was like, I have to control my income. Like I have to become an entrepreneur. Now, I was a terrible entrepreneur. I couldn't really make enough money to survive on my own. So I was like, I have to go learn how to do this. Like, I got to be surrounded by good entrepreneurs. Like, I'm the kind of
Mm.
person, like, if you throw me into fire, I will figure out how it works, you know? And so I applied, the first time, got to the first stage, didn't get it. Second time, first stage, didn't get it. Third time, first, second stage. Fourth time, fifth time, the sixth time, they emailed me and they went, "Hey, can you come in? We'd love to interview you. Just one final interview." So I go in. This time, I'm sure. I'm like, so I've cleaned
Yeah.
out my desk at my job. I've like moved all my files away. I'm like Lysoling the drawers. I'm like telling people bye. I'm like, yeah, if
I love
Shopify
that.
called me, like, I'm gonna be out in a couple of days, and so I get a call one day. I'm staring at my phone every day. I get a call, and the recruiter's like, "Hey, Toby," and as soon as she said, "Hey, Toby," I was like, "Oh my God!"
It's not a good look.
And they were like, "We wish we had better news. They just thought you were too green," and it killed me because, man, like I still remember that day because it was one of those days where I really doubted that I would ever make it something in my life because they had called me. I'd gone and done the interview. Um, I was so sure, and it just felt like, I kept interviewing the same guy. It felt like that guy did not want me in the company, and there was no way around him. And it also just felt like, because one of my friends who worked in the role I was supposed to get was like, "Dude, they interviewed 10 people and they hired 9. You were the only one they didn't hire, and you're better than the 9."
No.
Yeah, and he was like, "You're better than the 9 they did hire."
Oh, that's brutal.
And so I was like, "Bro." I remember I went upstairs in my office that day and I just laid down and I just cried for like 30 minutes. I was like, this can't be happening. You know? And I vowed, I was like, I will never apply to that place. They will never see me.
Hmm.
And then in 2020, March of 2020, I lost a $500,000 deal at the company I was working at because we were so disorganized and the client just got upset and walked away. And I just went like, I got to get out of sales. Like, I need to be more. I know that I'm capable of more, but it's like a flower trying to grow in the desert, like
Yeah.
what can you do, so the pandemic was just starting. And I was on LinkedIn one day at like 11 p.m. and I'm scrolling and scrolling. I just see, Shopify posts, we're still hiring. I was like, okay. So I went on the
One
job
more time.
description. Yeah. So I went on the careers page and I was like, you know what? I've done sales every time. What else is there? So I start going through. I see merchant success manager. I'm like, what the flip is a merchant success manager? I read through the job description and I was like, this is a perfect role for me. You're coaching merchants, helping them grow, building relationships. You don't have a quota, you know. And I called my friend that works there. I was like, hey, I want to apply for this role. Can you refer me? This is exactly what I want you to say about me. And he referred me around 1 a.m. He submitted 8 a.m. I get a call or an email. Hey, we'd love to
Nice.
interview you. And I take the first interview the next day. They skipped me past the second stage because they were like, we've seen you 6 times, like, so they skipped me right to the final stages. And I'm so confident this time. So I, do what I know. I reach out to 10 people on LinkedIn. Only one guy gets back to me, Nigerian guy,
Mm-hmm.
who was working in the role. He gives me all the answers. He's like, this is what they're going to ask you. This is how you got to answer it.
Amazing.
So we do that. And I go in, crush it. I mean, I absolutely destroyed that interview. Till today, I'm like, that is a goated interview. Like
Yeah, I love that. I love
so I
that.
was so confident because I felt like I was so prepared. And literally, like, from when I applied to when I got an offer was like 12 days. Um, and I asked for
Fantastic.
65 to 75K. They gave me like a total package of like 100.
Beautiful.
And I basically, when she's like, hey, we're going to make you an offer, I was like, oh my God, yes. And I'm like, my wife is beside me, I'm like, oh my God. And then she tells me the number and I just start crying, just literally bawling because it's like 3 years, 7 attempts. Like, Jesus Christ, let me in. Um, and then I call my parents. I was like, I finally got in. And my mom's like, oh, crying. My dad is like, what's the job? I was like, merchant success manager. And he's like, oh my God, you're a manager at Shopify? I was like, yeah, you can tell your friends that, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
um, and so that was Shopify. That was getting into Shopify. And I mean, a lot of people ask me like, why did you go for, not just the first time, but 7 times? And I was like, that's when you know that this is what you're supposed to do. You just
Yeah.
keep going. You just keep knocking. Like, I had a mentor explain it to me, like, if you come home and you know someone's home, you can see them.
Yeah.
How long are you going to knock for? It's your house. He's
I
like, you're
love
going to
that.
knock, you're going to call, you're going to try the window or the back door. You're going to like, so when I have that picture, when I pick something like this move to Paris, like buying a second house, buying a big ass house, like once I pick something and we decided like, oh yes, this is the next thing to get to the life that I've dreamed of,
Mm-hmm.
it's do or die at that point.
That Toby, that was beautiful. I absolutely love it, and that's also why I wanted to spend time on this because like we've talked about this before, and there are so many life lessons in that. Like some of the key takeaways here being like just because you don't get that first job in the company you really want to work at, it doesn't mean you're done. Keep going.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of times where it's not you not doing well as a candidate, you just get beat by someone else for something you just can't control. It's just maybe that other person has more experience, like in your case when they told you were too green. They just had a candidate who could hit the ground running in their minds, could hit the ground running on day one, and they opted to go with them instead of you. But that doesn't mean that you weren't good. And I see that so often, like when I'm hiring, I'm like, I wish I could pick all three. I can't. Like
Yeah.
between the three, if I have to pick one, I'm gonna end up picking this person. But that doesn't mean the other two weren't good. And I would love it if they stayed in touch with me because we could
Hmm.
potentially bring them in as it happened to you. Like they
Yeah.
brought you in for interviews there. And the other key takeaway is prep. Reaching out on LinkedIn to people is a volume game, and I can't emphasize this enough to people that at your dream company, don't just message one person. There's at least 100 people working in these tech companies. Message all of them. You'll get
Yeah,
at least someone who responds. And,
yeah.
that one person could help you prep for your interview or just open the door. You just never know. Like when I moved to Canada, my first job, because like I knew I wanted to work in tech, I just didn't know where in tech.
Hmm.
But like I kept meeting people, I kept interviewing, and I still have the spreadsheet saved in my Google Drive because I was tracking how many people I messaged on LinkedIn, how many responded, because I started treating it as a sales pipeline. And I ended up connecting with, and by connecting, I mean like meeting or having a phone call. This was pre-pandemic, so we just did this in person. Those in-person coffee chat days, and
Mm.
I met 107 people, um,
Holy shit!
which means I messaged at least 2,000 people over the course of a year and a half,
Wow.
to just get those conversations going. And of those 107, about 15 people are now people I consider friends, mentors. And it's I think it's the most beneficial thing one can do for their career is just like keep putting yourself out there. There's a
100%.
lot to be gained. Like there is no downside, the way I look at it. Like there might be some upside, there might be no upside, there might be exponential upside, but there is no downside to doing it.
No, there's no downside, and I think the lesson in yours though that a lot of people don't understand is the concept of massive action. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people go like, "But I tried." I'm so so did
Yeah.
like 1,000 other people.
Yep.
Like 2,000 messages. Like you don't lose, and I think the best things in the world are reserved for people that try again.
Absolutely.
And not like the people that have a number of times they try, but the people whose philosophy is to try again until, you know. So that's really cool. That you connected with that many people like that. That will open up your world. That will open up your world so quickly. So well
I mean,
done.
this
That's really cool.
conversation wouldn't have been happening if we hadn't connected on LinkedIn.
That's
This is
true.
it's uh, it's pretty insane to think about, that the internet has, like, there's obviously a lot of nonsense and shit that goes on, a lot of downsides to the internet, but like there's so much you can do. You can connect with people that you think are interesting, and it doesn't have to do anything to do with career. That's fine as well. But
Yeah.
speaking of LinkedIn, tell me, how did the journey start, on about posting on LinkedIn? And that's how. And also, let's talk about, okay, what came first? Did three skills come first or posting on LinkedIn? What was the journey there like?
No, Three Skills was founded June 2019. And
Mm-hmm.
then, we started training people. I put that on my resume going into Shopify that seventh time. And that was, I guess, the catalyst is we were teaching people how to land jobs. My co-founder had landed
Mm-hmm.
a job at Shopify in December, and then she had essentially helped me, kind of get ready for that as well.
Amazing.
So Three Skills was the catalyst, and I got into Shopify May 2020. And during onboarding, this guy Kerry, who was the facilitator, taught us a storytelling framework called Freytag's Pyramid, Freytag. I still teach it in all my courses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's a storytelling framework that was created in the 1800s that they used to write movies and all this stuff. And it just captures the emotion and the essence of stories in a way that's super easy to communicate. So I was like, you know what? Like a lot of things in my head are theory. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
I only believe in the things I can prove
Fair.
in a lot of ways. And so I made a post on LinkedIn using this kind of framework, right, about my sister, how she had studied Korean, transitioned careers, and now, she was thriving. And that post got about, I think it was like 5,000 likes and like 300,000 impressions or something like that.
Holy shit.
And I was
Nice.
like, once is luck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, twice is proof. And I'm like, three times is a formula, you know? And so I was like, I'm going to do another one with my brother, same kind of
Yeah.
using the same framework. Bro, 500,000 impressions, 10,000 likes. I'm like, 10,000 likes, 500,000 people. I'm like, that's like 20 Scotiabank arenas.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so many
That's an
eyeballs
interesting
that
way
I
to
was
look at
like,
it. Yeah.
oh my goodness, imagine doing 20 speeches in front of like a full packed stadium. And so I put the link to my company, Three Skills, that time. And bro, the applications just started coming in. Our cohorts were starting
Nice.
to fill up. And I was like, oh my God, like I've unlocked something. So I told our head of marketing, because we had been trying to experiment with ads and all this stuff. None of it was working, not a single lead. And all of a sudden we
Mm-hmm.
had this channel. So I was like, I'm going to post every day for the next forever. I'm just going to post every day
Mm-hmm.
and I'll find ways to tie it into Three Skills and let's see what happens. And the first year I got about 4 million impressions. We did about $33,000 in 2020 for Three Skills. And I was
Wow.
like, it was incredible because in the first year we had done about $11,000, right? And so I
Whoa,
was,
that's
you know,
incredible.
so it was like triple. So I was like, I'm going to keep posting and we're going to rebuild our package to make it
Mm-hmm.
better. We, you know, brought in a coach slash consultant, helped us rebuild this stuff. And so the next year we did about $102,000 in 2021. Um, Again, magnificent. You know, like
4x.
I got
Beautiful.
I got 11 million impressions that year. And then
Wow.
2022, we went full data driven, like, okay, what is working? How do I create content? What content should I create? Like, how to, so I was at about 20,000, 22,000 followers at the beginning of 22. Um, and I became like a mad scientist with LinkedIn. Like, I wanted to understand the algorithm, what they were pushing, how they're pushing it, why they're pushing it. Like, and 2022 was that year. Like, I think across my two businesses, we did like $330,000. And, you
Wow.
know, Three Skills did 230,000. And I got about 70 million impressions. I went viral on Reddit on the
That's
homepage
two
twice.
Canadas.
I know. So I got all these impressions, you know, like my content was everywhere. I was getting called to speak at companies. Like it just went insane. I got, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so much visibility at work. I got promoted at work, you know, like I presented Three
Brilliant.
Skills as proof that I can build a brand new team. Like in my
Fantastic.
interview, it was just one of those years. Like 2022 was one of the best years. Um, it was incredible, you know. And so that was, and I just kept going. I just, you know, I call it stacking, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first you stack the habit, which is you're going to do this every day. The goal, the result, the championship is showing up tomorrow and showing up tomorrow and showing up tomorrow. That is the goal. There nothing else is the goal. The metric is not the goal. Popularity is not the goal. The goal is the goal, which is to show up. And once you do that, then you add science,
Yeah.
right? So now
Brilliant.
you got consistency as like your foundation, and then you add science and data, right? And then you add wisdom, and then you add, right? And now because you're stacking, it's so stable. So now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my content's been seen 140 million times.
My God.
And I told that to my mom, and she was like, "What? Like what even is that number?" You know?
That is wild. That is wild. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So in terms of the key takeaways, is, just get started, consistent, pick a timeline that works for you and keep doing and stick to that timeline. Now, my question is, especially because like you're posting daily, which is obviously a lot harder than doing weekly or monthly. How do you keep coming up with content? Because it's a lot. Like even if it's 2 lines every day, like how do you keep going about it where you're saying something valuable on such a consistent basis?
yeah, I mean, I believe that one of the secrets is I am a walking tape recorder. You know, every story, every interaction is inspiration for me because content comes from three places. It comes from your personal experience, it comes from the experience of the people around you, and it comes from the experience of people you don't even know that you have heard. So I'm
Yeah.
always collecting stories. I'm collecting my own stories. I'm collecting stories from the people around me, friends, all this stuff, and I'm collecting stories that I hear around me. And the thing is, as human beings, we live through stories. You know, parables get passed down generation after generation, right? Like the houses, the wealth may fade, but the stories don't. You know,
Oh, that's
um,
beautiful. I love that.
and so because that's how humans function, I'm able to just curate stories. Like I'm always saving posts on LinkedIn. I'm always it's like, oh, that's an interesting story. Oh yeah, someone calls me, texts me, hey, I got a job. What was the salary? Oh my God, do I help someone? Like I have stories. Like I coach through stories because what I learned, and back to your first question that you asked, like how do people choose their careers? We
Hmm.
we reach for the highest branch we can see. And so when you tell a story, it gets people to see something more. And because they see something more, they can now aim higher. Right. Um, and so that's really all that I've done. And like now I can create 2, 3 months of content. I know which ones are gonna go viral. Most of them get, I
Yeah.
think I averaged like over a million impressions on LinkedIn for like 70 weeks straight at some point, you know.
Hmm.
But that's just like people live through stories, And so
Yeah.
as soon as you can master this one skill, now you can take it and put it on LinkedIn. Now you can take it and make a short form video. And once consistency builds credibility. So once you do it long enough, now
Right.
people go, okay, this is who we go to for this, right? And I did a LinkedIn live audio yesterday
Yeah.
and 1,500 people.
Incredible.
People were there for 3.5 hours. I was answering questions for 3 hours.
Amazing.
Like one by one, and I think of how far those stories have gone and how there are people there from all over the world, literally from like east to west. And I'm like, this is why stories are so powerful because they transcend borders and they transcend cultures and they transcend like
Yeah.
all of these different things and they connect us on the most human thing, which is emotion,
Hmm.
you know. Um,
Beautiful.
so yeah.
That is beautiful. I love that. Storytelling is something that I have been trying to work on as a skill. And I actually learned that when you and I did the workshop together. So,
Yeah.
for context, I signed up for Tobi's workshop last year, and I learned a lot from it. I highly recommend it. And like since then, like in all my sales pitches, I've been trying to craft that story aspect to it. Where earlier I went in talking about, you know, the benefits, taking away from the pain, but now I'm starting to get better at crafting all of it into one seamless story. And I definitely started to see a lot more success. And I don't think I'm quite there yet. There's obviously a long way to go, but I am being able to implement that framework a little bit more every single day, just trying to be more conscious about it. And to your point, like stories travel, and it does better than any single data point that you can
Yeah.
present.
100%.
So t- tell me, you mentioned that you use three skills as a case study on why you would make a good manager. Tell me more about that. Like, how did that go about, and how can someone who's an individual contributor who wants to make the transition to be a manager use that as a path?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think everyone can use it, but what happened was I worked at an entrepreneurial company. I know what they value, right?
Right.
And so I was up against this guy who's one of my friends, but he was so good. Like it was two of us for one role. The role was going to double my salary, double his salary.
Hmm.
And so I prepped for probably 30 to 40 hours. And one of the, they were like, okay, we want you to talk about your leadership principles. We want you to um, pitch or show us something you've built or a project you've built from scratch, on how you thought about building it. And then we want you to tell us what you would do in the first 30, 60, 90 days. And I went like, okay, this guy is probably going to do something like this, which most people would do.
Right.
And I went, what can I say that nobody else can say? And at that point, it was that I had taken, I started three skills because my sister was struggling to land jobs and I'd helped her transition. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, I'm going to tell the story of how that went from like my sister complaining and being impacted by that to a $100,000 company. And that's going to be how I built this,
Yeah.
and that's what I ended up bringing into the interview. Obviously, the other guy can't bring that.
Right.
Um, and then for the 30, 60, 90 day, I talked about how I led these volunteer teams and all the mistakes I made in my 30, 60, 90 days. And then I
Nice.
told them about what I would do if I took this role in 30, 60, 90 days. Um, I got that job 2 days later.
Brilliant.
So
I love
I think
that.
for people that are trying to get into leadership, what you need to know is at the point where you want to step into leadership, people no longer just pay you for the experience of what you have done. What they're wanting to pay you for, and the reason why they want to put you into leadership, is also for the wisdom that you bring
Mm-hmm.
to the table, right? And
For
wisdom
sure.
is oftentimes communicated through the mistakes you've made, the lessons you've learned, right? And so in doing that, it was a simple decision for them, right? Like, this person can deal with more ambiguity, right?
Right.
Um, but also, it was also the reason why I eventually had to leave, because my job became, once we had the structure and the systems and, hey, this is how it works.
Right.
Don't mess with the status quo. Then I had to leave because
Yeah.
I thrive in those initial environments, and I slowly die in
I hear you.
the other environments.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. No, that's a really good point. I think, yeah, about just sharing wisdom, and especially for someone if they don't have leadership experience but trying to get there, like you have to start behaving like a leader before you have the job. Like you need to start showcasing that you're coaching, you're helping your peers out. If they're having a bad day, just put a hand around their shoulder, take them out for a cup of coffee. And like these things are these are the soft skills. Like as you move up, I feel like as leaders you need to have more soft skills than the technical skills, because you're not necessarily, like for a sales manager role, you're not necessarily selling yourself as much. You're only stepping in as needed, but just making sure that everyone's set up for success.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I feel is very important, because that helped me get my role to an extent. Like to your point, I was already uh, trying to do more leadership stuff as an individual contributor, but also just talking to the decision makers about it and telling them you are interested and want to do this.
Mhm.
A lot of times people think, oh, I want to be a people manager, but they've never communicated that to their bosses. And like no one's going to, like the chances of someone just going in, picking you up and saying, okay, you get to do this now, is much lower than someone, like if you're competing against someone who's gone up and expressly told them, hey, I want to manage people, I want to lead a team, versus you who you're thinking that, oh, I'm the best performer on this team, so I should be the logical choice. It doesn't happen. So just like keep talking about it, put yourself out there, and
100%.
if you're like Toby, just start a company, scale it to 100 grand in revenue. But yeah, no, that's a very, very, very good point. Okay, tell me about being online, because like obviously you're sort of like a LinkedIn. I hate saying influencer. Okay, content creator. Like you're a very strong LinkedIn content creator. Um, y- I can't even imagine what your DMs look like, because I'm guessing every time you post, there's at least 50 messages from people asking for something or just reaching out to say hi. How do you manage your inbox? And the reason I ask this is because like I occasionally post. I'm not nowhere consistent. I'll post once in a while. I reshare a lot of good stuff, and and I get maybe 10 DMs back to back, and I'm just like, okay, never mind. I'm not reading any of this. Like it's too much. That LinkedIn notification beep drives me crazy. As much as I love the platform and it's added a lot of value to my life and career. Um, yeah, how do you go about managing that?
So it used to be crazy. Like I think when I initially started, and I didn't have a lot of resources to give people,
Hmm.
it used to be crazy because people would come to me with like individual requests.
Yeah,
And I used to take the time and respond to everything. Because the thing is, like, I didn't start any of my companies as a way to make money. I started my companies because I was solving a problem that I cared about, and there was a way to make money.
got it.
So then I started like going, okay, I need different solutions. I have on my phone about 100, what do you call it, shortcuts, like text shortcuts, text
Hmm.
expanders. So as people come to me, like if I can't do a one-on-one at that time, I'll type add can't and it'll send them a little blurb about why I can't do a one-on-one. If I think there's an opportunity, I'll send them, add chat and we can chat for 15 minutes, or add call and we can do a 30-minute call, or, add create and we can do a brand deal together, or add free
Nice.
resources and, I send them straight to my free resources or webinar or masterclass. So I got really good at managing it in a way where my shortcuts, as soon as I read the message, I'm like, okay, this person just needs resources, send them here. This person needs this program, send them here, right?
Yeah.
So that made it easier. And then also I made a lot of my resources free, like,
Hmm.
so, when people reach out, like, listen, if you are not willing to pay for something, that's not a problem. Here
Hmm.
are all my free resources, you
Yeah.
know. But I do believe that at some point I had to get to a point where I could be more efficient.
Yeah.
And I was able to get there. And now I still enjoy going through those messages one by one because, man, I meet so many really smart. I just met a 16-year-old content creator, ghostwriter. I'm like, bro, 16.
Wow.
Oh
That's
my
incredible.
God. Like, do you know how early you are? I met another girl, 25, already has a degree in computer development, already built her own mobile app, her own marketing agency, currently studying cognitive science, already has a marketing agency cash flowing for her, worked in sales at a tech startup, and is graduating next year. I'm like,
Ridiculous.
like,
Just unreal.
So,
Wow.
so I still love kind of going through the messages and like discovering these, like, I met this founder who owned 92% of his company when he sold it for $70 million to Shutterstock.
Beautiful.
I mean,
That's the dream.
incredible stuff, man. Incredible stuff, So, um, it's been, I manage it still manually, but I like it. I like kind of
Yeah.
going through it and seeing what I can get out of it.
That's amazing. I love that. No, and you're right. Like there's just so many cool people doing so many amazing things that every time I hit a slump, I just like, yeah, you know what? It's fine. It's a bad day. It's not a bad
Yeah,
life. We'll just get up.
bad day,
Like
not a bad life.
there's so many people doing such amazing things, and you don't have to look too far for inspiration. Like they're literally on your feed,
Yes.
and it's right there. You just have to keep looking.
Yeah.
So I have one more question about the LinkedIn stuff. How did you pick LinkedIn over other platforms? Like, did you try starting with all of them and then finalize LinkedIn, or it just happened?
No, I think I at that point, we were just trying anything. I remember like Three Skills was dying. We were
Hmm.
just trying to like get more attention. We tried ads. I tried posting on my story. I tried Twitter. I tried TikTok. Like I was just like, let me just try. And I picked LinkedIn because LinkedIn picked me. Like that was the one I got something
Mm-hmm.
from early, and early signs I tap into. And then people were like, you got to be multi-channel, omni-channel. And I was like, yeah, but that's like a lot of work. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
to be omni-channel, like schedule posts across 8 different, like, I just don't know how to do that. I'm just going to stick with one. And I learned the
Yeah.
power of one. I've gone viral on TikTok. I've gone viral on Instagram. I've gone viral on Reddit. I've gone viral on LinkedIn from my LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
You
nice.
know,
Amazing.
people have
Amazing.
literally taken screenshots that I've never met and literally put it on TikTok and gotten like 100, 200, 300,000 views. And then it's
Nice.
gone on Reddit, and then it's gone on. I'm like, this is insane, And
Wow.
so I think when you don't have the systems to do everything, it's not a problem. Do one thing,
Yeah.
put in massive action, give it 3 years, and it will create room for you.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and that also defies the conventional online wisdom of being omni-channel all the time. Pick one, start working on it, go deep on that, and then eventually that success will sort of spill over into the other platforms as well. That's very cool. So tell me more about the free resources. Like, if someone who's listening were to want to access it, how can they get to it?
Yeah, I mean, on my LinkedIn, I have it in my bio there.
Okay.
But also, if you just go to the3skills.com/access resources, um, you will be able to just put in your email, get resume templates. I have like a little AI playbook in there with job boards and tools that I found. I love curating tools.
Mm-hmm.
I love curating tools that help people.
Yeah.
And there's so many, so um, that's where those sit. And that's usually where I send like 90% of people. I'm like, you don't need to pay for stuff. Like when someone's not
Yeah.
working and they want to pay me to be their coach, I'm like, no, you need your money to pay your bills. Like this
For
is
sure.
not the time to hire a coach.
Yeah.
And so it's been really great to just be able to serve people. I lost count of how many people have accessed our free resources. Um,
That's incredible.
but I want to make them even better, right? Give people even more free resources and really be able to just create offers that people need if they need to implement things
Yeah.
and need that accountability and structure to be able to implement it, right? But the knowledge, I believe, should be free.
Absolutely. No, and that this is an incredible legacy to have, Toby. Like I've seen those resources. I've used those resources before. Obviously, I've worked with you on your workshop, so I definitely see the immense value that you just share out for the world, and it is like it's a big deal. Like I think it's it's incredible. And on behalf of everyone who uses those resources, thank you for sharing those. I have two more questions. One, using AI for resumes and cover letters, because since you brought it up and I've seen you post on LinkedIn about it, what okay, let me rephrase this. How much can you rely on AI to do your cover letter and resumes versus getting involved in editing, making it your own? Or on a scale of 0 to 10, how much interference do you need from a person when they submit their resume cover letters to the AI thing to fix?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a couple theories. The first is
Mm-hmm.
this is the craziest, toughest, most competitive market there's ever been.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I think like I've seen people struggle that are brilliant. Um, the other thing is like the layoffs thrust a bunch of people into the market that have not looked
Mm-hmm.
at their resume for years.
Fair.
And then AI showed up and basically went, you don't need a $250 career coach. You don't need a $1,000 resume writer. You need a $5 subscription, and we'll help you create a resume that's optimized based on what we know about good resumes. That is a great resource. Here's all that it means. If you create a resume using AI, cover letter using AI, it's probably going to be better than what you pay someone to do, because that person cannot know everything that AI knows. So that's one. I back those things. I promote them. Kick Resume, Teal, Ramped. Like, I love those tools. They're great. Here's all that's going to happen. This is what I talked about on my LinkedIn Live. The goalpost is going to shift. So at some point, if you had a good resume, you had a better chance of getting hired. Sorry, interviewed.
Yep.
Now, every resume is the same, and they're all good. So the goalpost shifts to not just can you create a good resume, but do you have the soft skills to communicate your value in that resume? Do you have the soft skills to communicate your value in the interview? And do you have the persuasion to be able to get across the line for the job? So the goalpost is going to shift to where, my friend's a founder. He just put out a call for his first couple hires. 27 or 72 hours in, 150 applications, all AI resume builds.
Wow.
And so what does that mean? Everyone's resume looks good, right? But we've said this from the beginning of Three Skills. A good resume is as useless as a bad one because it just blends in, right? And so
I love that.
Now you got to actually be able to communicate. What do your words say? It looks good. It is good. What do the words say? Can you communicate the value that you bring? And then do you have the soft skills? And then the next phase is community. Because if 60 to 80% of roles are not posted online, these 400 or 500 people are applying to this role, but you're getting this role that has been essentially hidden because companies don't want to look at 400 AI resumes.
For sure.
Community is next. And that's why I'm going to, in 2024, build one of the greatest communities. Like I've just clocked it. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, that is what's next. Right?
I love that.
Like people going, hey, someone on my team is about to quit. Give me your resume. I'll give it to the hiring manager. That is the next wave for the best talent.
I love that. Well, whenever the community goes live, sign me up because I would love to be a part of it. That is so interesting. Yeah. Like in my head, it's like an AI battle between an AI resume versus an AI resume screener, which is also AI, and they're just going back at it and
100%.
picking. Like I don't even know on what basis it'll screen it, but like it'll just be a bunch of AIs going after each other to produce what is eventually talent. No, I love that, and I think as AI sort of picks up, I've already started using AI in a lot of my day-to-day life. Like for context, this podcast, the last couple of episodes, all edited by AI, versus me having to find someone through Freelancer and paying them an X amount of money. This, I have a monthly subscription. It does everything. It pulls out a transcript for me, everything. And then I use ChatGPT to turn the transcript into a blog post as well. So there's multiple content streams coming out of it. So there's it's going to keep, the proliferation will increase, and the more human experiences will become like a bespoke experience. Will be a lot more premium, and it's. I personally am quite excited to see what happens. I think we are in a very, very interesting time in tech history. Like obviously, there's a lot of shit going on 100%. In the world, but from purely a tech standpoint, I think this is a very, very interesting time to be alive.
Yeah, but yeah, listen. It's always been good to. I'm so glad we stayed in touch.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
I appreciate every single thing that you're doing through this podcast. I think it's going to impact a lot of people. And thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Toby. Always a pleasure. And we'll talk again soon, all right?
Okay,
Take care.
bye.